Ladies and gentlemen, Rob Brydon.
Hello, hello, hello,
Hello.
hello, hello.
Hi, Rob.
Good evening.
Take
Hello.
a seat.
Hello.
David Walliams, who is, as I say, in real, he's pretty much your best friend, isn't he?
No.
No? Oh.
I wouldn't say that. No, he's a very good friend of mine.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's one of my best friends. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
We'll go on to, as I say, we'll tread a path through your life and the book and everything within the next hour.
Splendid.
But as far as Walliams, you met him first on Cruise of the Gods, is that right?
This
Which
was
you
a
touched upon in
program
the book.
called Cruise of the Gods, which they repeated a few nights ago. I don't know if
Yes.
anybody was lucky enough to enjoy it, but it was a sort of comedy drama set on a cruise ship. It starred myself and a young Manchester actor called Steve Coogan. What became of him, we don't know.
No.
It had David Walliams in it before he was well known, and it had James Corden in it when he was unknown, and it had a very unknown Russell Brand as an extra. And Russell actually got sent home from the ship for his carousing, and it was all a bit awkward for Russell.
But you knew, in the book you say, that you could see even then that Russell was going to be
Yeah,
a star.
Russell's very charismatic, and he used to go off whoring. There's no other word for it. There's not many people in the public eye you can say that about without fear of, some kind of something coming back with Russell. Oh yes, he used to go whoring, and he would come back the next day with stories, and we'd be on this ship, and he would be on the deck telling me what he'd done the night before. There I was, stood, a beckoning finger from the darkness. Should I enter forth or should I resist? No, the heady aroma was too much. And I thought, who the hell is this? He was unknown, this guy, He was just like, he was an extra. And I said something that you never say to extras, they're adorable people, don't get me wrong. But I said, I think you're going to be a big star. And you would never say that to somebody, know. But he just had something, and he was either going to end up in prison or in Hollywood.
Wow. And in terms of David, you ended up sharing a bed with him, I believe.
Yes.
How did that
happen? We were filming on this ship, and we actually ran aground. We got a hole in the boat, something you think will never happen. Let me turn like that, and then I can give some attention here as well. When you're on a boat, if you're a little bit nervous, I was a bit nervous on there because there was one night, there was a storm, and I was terrified. I actually put my clothes on, in the middle of the night, thinking, oh my God, we're going to have to get off the boat. I was so scared. And I had pictures of my kids by the side, and I was going, oh, and I could see out of the window the waves. Anyway, I eventually went to sleep, woke up late the next morning for the call, for filming, and I said to the first AD, I said, I'm so sorry, but the storm last night. And he said, what storm? And I was the only person that had noticed it. So I was ready to evacuate, and no one else had noticed this was happening. Anyway, we ran aground. We hit a rock, big hole in the side of the ship. We had to change ships. And on the second ship, there weren't enough cabins. People had to share. David and I shared and went in to see the cabin, and it looked like a big double bed. But it was actually two single beds put together. So we said to the maid, could you separate the beds? And she moved them apart by about that much. So we thought, what the heck? We put them back together. And it was like sleeping with him every night.
Yeah. And you've become bosom buddies.
And that was where we became good friends. But I would get up to go to the loo at night, and he's not a very good sleeper. So I would walk around the bed and go into the loo, and I'd be having a wee. And from the bedroom, I'd hear, oh, my Rob. Oh, my Rob. Impressed, as if he was impressed by the sheer ferocity of the flow.
Yeah. Well, who wouldn't be?
Exactly.
But let's go back. So when you decided to write this book, your autobiography, had you read a lot of...
I had read other books.
Other celebrity books recently.
I'd read upwards of 10 books by this point.
Amazing. Did you think immediately, right, I'm going to have the whole story? Did you think, could you stop it kind of just
I did
when
think
you
it
reach...
would feature mainly myself, yes.
But you stop it when you reach the kind of... the height of your fame, really, don't you?
Yes.
Why did you do that? Why did you decide to concentrate on the struggle, in a way?
Well, it stops in 2000 when I first had some success with Marion and Jeff and Human Remains. It seemed when I was talking to publishers, we met a few publishers, and I was telling them my story. It just seemed that was the story. It was the years of struggling, because I did struggle for a long time, and it's all detailed in the book. That seemed the story, and it seemed a good dramatic point, to finish when I finally get where I wanted to be. Because when that happened in 2000, and I suddenly found myself being written about in papers, and they would do profiles, and I would read them, and they all said, apart from shorter than I expected, they all said that. But then they said, and of course he struggled for years. And I was a bit surprised. I thought, did I? I've done all right, haven't I? Because I've been doing kind of okay with voiceovers and things. But when I did the book, when I went back to my old diaries and I looked at them, I thought, bloody hell, yeah, because there was so much. I don't know, you've read it. There's so much rejection and so much just banging on the door again and again.
Yeah. And at one point, you can't pay your mortgage and you need money and you're kind of desperate.
Yeah, the interesting thing is I'd forgotten that. It's amazing what you keep in your... If you'd said to me, did the bank ever refuse to pay your mortgage? I'd have said no. But then I went back into my diaries and there it was. They'd said no. And we were actually selling pieces of furniture to raise money, to raise dosh. So it's interesting, I think, how you put those bad memories out of your mind. But they're all in the book.
Yes. But there's some happy stuff as well. Your childhood
very
seems
little
pretty
happy stuff.
How would you describe yourself
It's
as
a very
child?
happy childhood, but I'm thinking I should have made it a bit more traumatic. People like a bit of drama, No, it was a lovely childhood. Somebody said it's like a child's Christmas in Wales, It's, but I was very fortunate. I grew up in a loving family and was always encouraged with... my acting ambitions. I was always told I was talented. I was always told I was good. So I always had that, inbuilt sense of arrogance. I don't know, but
But you were a bit of an attention seeker. You would say you wanted to perform.
No, Boyd, that's not what I said.
Okay. Sorry.
Well, no, I like to perform. I mean, we had a vicar at our local church. We used to go to church on a Sunday, and our vicar, Isloin Lewis, very Welsh, used to hide me in his robes. And then he would go like that. Okay. And I would leap out of the robes and do a little turn. I mean, nowadays, if a priest was found to be concealing a small boy, I mean, bring back the news of the world, because we would have him. But in those days, simpler times, the congregation wasn't happy if I hadn't popped out of those robes at least once.
And then what did you do? What was your turn?
What was my turn? Yeah. They said I would sing a song, or I would, I don't know, do a funny face or something. I don't know. I was very young.
From quite a young age, you knew you could do voices, you could do impressions. What were the first impressions you knew you could do?
Well, I think I used to do stuff from Sesame Street, like Bert and Ernie and Kermit. There was a comedian in Wales, you won't know unless you were from Wales, called Ryan Davis, and he had a little cast of characters. I used to be able to impersonate those. And I would do teachers at school. Hartley Hare, who remembers Hartley Hare? There we are. He was a puppet of a hare, a rabbity hare, not a hare. Yeah. And on an ITV show. And he used to talk like this. He had his... got a bit of a sore throat, but his hand was on a stick, and he'd go, hello, like that. And there was another character called Pig, and I think Pig talked like that, and he used to say, Hartley, come on, hurry up, Hartley. And my routine involved Hartley in the bathroom, how shall I put it, having a bit of me time. And Pig would be knocking on the door, are you in there, Hartley? And Hartley, because his voice was already a bit of a, he'd be going, I'll just be a minute. And my school chums thought this was hilarious, you see. It hasn't aged well, I'll be honest.
I don't know.
And it rarely features in my act now, but...
Rarely.
But that's the kind of thing I was doing.
Yeah. As I said, in the enhanced ebook, is that what it's called?
Yes, it is. It's an ebook. Well, a normal ebook is just the text on an iPad. Yeah. You can do that to it. Yeah. Shall we all have a go?
Yeah.
No, I'm serious. Let's all have a go. That's nice. That's good. Okay. Good. The ones that didn't do it, I have more respect for you than the ones who did. Yeah. An enhanced ebook is video. We do audio footnotes.
Wow.
Because I'd seen a few of these ebooks, and I was frankly disappointed because I thought it's a great opportunity for more. But really, they seemed, the ones I saw tended just to have hyperlinks. Do they still call them hyperlinks?
Yeah, I think so.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
So I went out and I did interviews with David and Steve Coogan.
Well, the reason I mention it now is because there's a lovely clip of you and your dad.
All right, on my
which
dad
talks
as well,
about a bit touching on your child. So let's have a look at this clip now, which I think is fantastic.
And I haven't put in the story about the orange. Was it in Greece?
No, that was in Spain, and you were about 6 or 7 at the time, and I clearly remember the three of us were walking along, and this Spanish guy comes along with a donkey and all these earthenware pots and jugs hanging off it, all very, very colourful. And we stop and we look at these things, and the first thing this Spanish guy does, he's got this plastic rubber orange in his hand, and he squeezes the orange and a huge penis shoots up, and the first thing you say is, "I'll have one of those." Whereupon your mother says, "You certainly will not." but because we were so taken with this guy's presentation, we then decided we'd buy a couple of his pots and things, and we still have them out now at home on the top of our landing, actually. And quite often when I'm feeling rather low, I look at those and it lifts my spirits, because I think of that delightful organ that was exhibited on that occasion.
You think of his inflatable penis.
Yes, yes.
And everything
yes.
seems nice.
Perfectly formed.
Yes, well in proportion.
Absolutely. So, yeah, that was there on holiday, Rob, yeah.
Wow, my dad's been
Brilliant.
applauded at the Apple, so I'll tell him. I'll phone him up and tell him.
He seems great, though. It seemed funny. I mean, can you see the line of humour from your dad to you?
Well, my dad lost his hair, but I've got a beautiful head of
Oh, yeah,
hair.
apart from that.
It's
Yeah.
inexplicable.
Yeah.
No, I can see a lot. I'm very like my father. A lot of my mannerisms. I see my humour as being a real combination of my mother and my father.
Right.
Really clearly. And I'm sure we're all the same, aren't we? We all grow into our parents. And I see it more and more as I get older. So often it's almost as I've gone on to stars in their eyes and I've said, "Tonight, Matthew, I'm going to be my dad," because I'm so like him,
Yeah.
But that's nice. It's lovely.
Yeah, that's lovely, yeah. I want to talk about your first kind of serious getting into performing, is like when you studied drama.
Yes.
And you were kind of, and I thought the bit I loved in the book is when you were forced to study dance, and you didn't like it. What was
Yeah.
wrong with you? Why didn't you want to study dance?
I had no interest. When I went to drama college at the Welsh College of Music and Drama in Cardiff, 1984, hard to believe, and or not. And part of it was dance, and of course I'm not a dancer, and I think I proved that unequivocally. So we had to be in our, everybody had to do it. The leg warmers. This was the age of fame. I want to live
Yeah.
forever.
Yeah.
I didn't. And it was that was part of it. Yeah, I just liked performing. I only went to drama school not for any great desire to study dramatic art. I'd loved acting at school, and I just wanted to carry on and do that all day, really.
And your heroes were like people like Pacino and Hoffman, and you mentioned those.
I like the short, dark actors.
Yes.
Pacino, De Niro, Corbett. Yeah, I did. I loved those guys, and I was Dougray Scott. Dougray Scott, the actor. Dougray was a contemporary of mine. We were really good friends, and we used to watch Pacino films on the TV whenever they were on together, and he was very intense. Dougray, he was always going to be a big hit. And,
But did part of you want to be one of those big?
Yeah, I
serious
did. And then you grow up and you kind of go, "Oh, that's not really me, is it?" I said to someone today, I think there's a saying, ride the horse in the direction that it's traveling.
Yeah.
And I think Dougray rode his horse in that direction. And I always wanted to do a comedy.
Yeah.
But there's a little part of you that thinks maybe I am the kind of Pacino character, and another part of you that says, "No, you're not. You're Uncle Bryn. You're a closeted, repressed technophile from Barry. That's who you are." And I think you should embrace that.
Yes. But did the other people in your group think, "Oh yeah, he's the funny one"?
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to sound conceited, but I've always had that. I've always had people have never been anything other than encouraging. I mean, apart from once when I got into the business, they stopped being encouraging. If
Right.
anything, they were discouraging.
Yeah.
But certainly my childhood, and then being at college, I was thought of as the kind of the funny one, I suppose. Yeah.
But now, when you left college, of course, you did then have a series of jobs which weren't exactly what you wanted to do necessarily.
Terrible jobs. I ended up on the Shopping Channel, presenting on the Shopping Channel, and that's, for somebody who thought he was Al Pacino, say hello to my little friend. It's a Magimix. It's Although, at the same time, it was London. If you've lived in Port Talbot, London is another galaxy. So if it's the Shopping Channel that gets you to London, there's still a part of you thinking, oh, well, okay, I'm in London. Maybe now I'll move into serious drama or comedy. Yeah. But you won't, because no casting director is going to go, look at this. We've got this guy here. He's on the Shopping Channel. Yeah, he'd be good for our movie.
Yeah.
I mean, like, at the same token, I don't know how many, maybe there are some actors, aspiring actors in the audience tonight, but there used to be a thing in the 80s and 90s called PCR, which was a printed casting breakdown telling you of productions that were going into production. And, desperate actors like me would subscribe to it and you'd get it. Ruth Jones and I used to share it, kind of go half each on it. And we show it to each other. And I remember they said they were making Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, Kevin Costner. And I wrote to them for a part. I mean, in what alternate universe are the producers of Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves going, okay, guys, I think we got the whole... Wait one fucking minute. There's a guy here been working on the Shopping Channel. Man, he could be good. I mean, but in your head, you think you're so desperate. It seems like another world,
You describe yourself in the book as that point when you're doing lots of different kind of TV presenting work, not very interesting, as a poor man's Keith Chegwin.
Which, rather unkindly for Keith, I usually follow up by saying, a poor man's Keith Chegwin, if such a thing could be imagined. Hello, Noel. Well, this was before the Shopping Channel. I was a sort of roving reporter. I fell into radio. I got offered a radio job. Basically, I had a comedy double act at college. And that got me noticed by Radio Wales. They offered me a regular presenting job, which I took because it was a job and it was money, But then I fell into radio and television presenting, this kind of and finally stories, like a woman who breeds ducks in West Wales and all. And I would always try and make them funny. And my director would always try and stamp me down and just make it journalistic. Yeah. And I thought, what am I doing?
When you talk about the radio, so I thought it was interesting. You talk about Jimmy Savile as being, really an inspiration in some ways.
Well, tell you what, Jimmy Savile. I mean, some of the younger people may not know who. I'm not looking at you when I say the younger people, sir. No. That would be satirical. Jimmy Savile, right? So Jimmy Savile is a famous British broadcaster. And when I did this first radio job, I feel guilty for saying that, and I'm going to direct everything to you. I wish I hadn't said it. Our first radio job was doing this thing that then got me the other stuff. And Jimmy Savile was the main guest, and I was doing a turn. And Jimmy Savile said two things that I've always remembered. He came up to me and James, my partner, and he said, he said, look at me. He said, look at me. He said, I can't dance, I can't sing, I can't act. He said, so what do I do? Well, I turn up at events, I smile, I wave. The punters say, Jim is having a good time, therefore, so are we. That was his philosophy, right? I said, well, and then the thing that really stayed with me, and it's very true, he said at the end of our little time together, he said, you know what? He said, it's very, very hard to get to the top in this business, but it's a damn sight harder staying there. That's very true. Wow. I think now more than ever, because I think now with people's access to broadcasting or narrowcasting, whatever you want to call it, you can make a name for yourself quite easily with a bit of controversy. But staying in a position where you're given opportunities to do good work is hard.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's what requires the work.
Before we move, we've got another clip from the enhanced ebook of your colleague at Radio Wales.
Yes.
Let's have a look.
Okay.
But you went on to do another show, and I contributed to that.
You did. I was still on Radio Wales, and I went on to do the afternoons, and I did a show called The Rush Hour with, we used to do a spoof telephone piece based around Elvis Presley, the pop singer, which is a kind of a thing that we were doing on Rave. We used to do a sort of little Ask Elvis piece. And we had an idea where Elvis was living in a house in Borth, with a bunch of celebrities, basically. So I would interview those celebrities. Basically, it was you on the phone doing this array of characters. Do you remember who we had on that?
It's whoever I could impersonate.
Yeah.
So Anthony Hopkins.
Elvis was married to Meghan.
Elvis had a Welsh wife called Megan, and Al would phone up. Let's do it now then.
Yeah.
She phoned.
Hello, can I? Yeah, hello. You have to go hello as if
that's
you're
me,
answering the
that's my
phone.
bit.
Yeah, I've swapped over. Got it the wrong way around.
Hello?
Is that Megan Presley?
Yes.
It's Alan Thompson here at BBC Radio Wales.
Hello, Alan.
How are you, Megan?
Oh, you've changed. Oh, who ate all the pies? How are you, Alan? Well, you're very well, I can see. I tell you what, if we go overboard in the ship, I'll be clinging to you for ballast. Anyway, Alan, do you want to speak to Elvis?
Is he there?
He is. Oh, before I put him on, let
Yeah.
me see who else is here.
Okay. So and then we go through the list.
And it would come, hi there, can you tell what it is yet? And I'd do Rolf Harris.
Rolf Harris.
Who else would I do?
You would do, as you say, Anthony Hopkins, who would always.
Anthony Hopkins would always have received a letter from a young drama student, said, Dear Sir Tony, no need for that, don't bother, don't call me Sir Tony, it doesn't matter. Dear Sir Tony, he said, I've been awarded a place at RADA, Royal Academy of Dramatic Art, but I haven't got the money needed to pay for fees. Would you help me with a small contribution? Well, this touched me when I read it, and I went straight to my bureau, sat down and wrote on a piece of paper, No, sir, we're not, your work size, give me, And he would always bawl them out, wouldn't he? He'd never give them the money.
And end up doing an impression of his role on the Bounty.
Yes.
Around the Horn's a good this way.
Around the Horn, yeah.
And of course, Tom was there, Tom Jones.
Yes, yes.
Al Pacino.
Yes, the same ones I'm doing now, yeah.
No.
And then we'd always finish with Elvis, and it was a kind of late Elvis, a drugged up Elvis, wasn't it?
Yes, it was a later Elvis.
Can I come on the phone like this and talking this way, but I don't know, sir. I just want to entertain. That's all. And then he would do a version of with you on the guitar.
Yeah.
But it was meant to be me doing a version of a popular song of the day in a kind of odd way.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank
Do
you.
you practice your impersonations? You spent hours practicing? They are incredible.
No, not really.
They just come to you naturally.
Yeah, I just do people I like. So
Yeah.
it's very much the sincerest form of flattery
Okay.
with me. You know, if I'm doing somebody, I like them.
Yeah. What would you say was your big break, though, as in getting you to the point where you were on TV, as we know
Well, it was
you now?
Marion and Jeff
Yeah.
and Human Remains.
Yeah.
That got me opportunities, and since then I've not really looked back. And then Gavin and Stacey took it to another level.
How did that happen? How did Marion and Jeff, for example, you came up with Keith Barrett, the character?
I'd had the character of Keith Barrett for some time. I used to do it with Al on the radio. Excuse me. And then I was trying to get acting work, and I couldn't get anything decent. I was getting little parts in some sitcoms and stuff, but nothing that ever gave me any momentum. And as an actor, you want momentum in your career. You want things to start moving, and people to get excited about you, and opportunities to come your way. And it's very hard. So I got out of the blue. I had a call from a casting director I knew saying that there was a film being made called Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels. And the role that I could read for was the nerdy traffic warden. And I nearly said no, because all the roles I was getting were nerds. I say in the book, I think that when you're at drama school, you play a lot of roles, and that's all well and good. But it gives you a very false sense of your future career, because once you're out of college, you basically will play the roles that you look like. And you better know what you look like and not be under any illusions. Unbeknownst to me, I looked like a nerd. So I played nerdy policeman, nerdy reporter, nerdy presenter, and here was nerdy traffic warden. And I can remember being in the kitchen in the flat we lived in then, thinking, why, what's this? This is not going to do me any good. It's not going to progress anything. Why do it? And it was only because it was a feature film. And I thought, well, it's a film, okay. So I went along and met Guy Ritchie, then unknown, read this part, which was, if you've seen the film, all I do is I say, you can't park here, ouch, and that's about it. So anybody could do it. You'd have to be hard-pressed to fail that audition, really. And I got the part and did it. And the film, it was a funny thing, actually, filming it, because they phoned the day before and said, we may have to put you on hold, because Vinnie Jones, who's in the film, has been arrested for threatening his neighbour. I sound like Ronnie Corbett, I don't mean to. Vinnie Jones He's been arrested for threatening his neighbour with a shotgun, and we don't know if he's going to be released in time. I said, oh, all right, yeah, okay. Anyway, then they thought, no, it's okay, he's been released. So I went in the next day, and I got there about midday. They said, look, we're not ready for you. Go and sit on the lunch van. I went and sat on the lunch bus, and I'm sitting there reading the paper, and a presence sits down opposite me, but I don't know who it is. And I'm turning the pages, and there's the story about Vinny, and there's a picture of Vinny in the story about him having been arrested. And then I pull down the paper, and there he is. And it was like in a Western or something, when there's an escaped convict, and they read the thing, and there he is opposite them, and they go... So I did that film, and when it came out, I got mentioned in Empire magazine, which was my Bible then. I loved films, and I was amazed that it had mentioned me because it was such a small role. And that made me think, well, this is an opportunity to promote myself. And I wrote a script. I was earning a lot of money from voiceovers by that point. So I wrote a script of 4 characters, one of which was Keith Barrett. And I went out and shot it with my best friend, Reese. And I paid to have an edit. You couldn't do it on Mac. You could do it on a Mac now, of course. But then it was, you had to get an edit suite, la-di-da. Did all that. And it was that tape. That tape was seen by Hugo Blick, who went on to co-write, and he directed Marion and Jeff. I showed it to Julia Davis, who I'd known for a few years anyway, and she showed it to Steve Coogan. So it was that tape that started everything.
That's interesting, isn't it? Because it's very similar, because last week we had Ricky Gervais here in the Apple Store, and his big thing was he made a tape of David Brent, the character.
Yeah, I think you have to... it's so easy, because, if you can show someone a DVD or something, and if they like it, they like it. Yeah. The hard thing is getting them to show them something they like. But if they see something and they like it, well, there it is. Yeah. It's formed, and it's ready. Yeah. And that was what Hugo and I then... Hugo was at the BBC. He had some money available to make a pilot. We developed the character together. Steve had just formed Baby Cow Productions, his partnership with Henry Normal. And he got it produced. He got it made.
And both of those shows, Human Remains and Marion and Jeff, ended up almost arriving at similar time, didn't they? You were suddenly there.
I had a run, and at the time I wasn't happy, because Marion and Jeff was 10 weeks. It was 10-minute shows, 10 episodes. It went out from September, and then just before that finished, Human Remains started. So I felt I was kind of blowing my cover, as it were, all in one go. But in fact, it was good because... I think you could watch Marion and Jeff and think, oh, well, that's him. That's what he does. But then Human Remains showed me doing 6 different characters. So that was quite...
And they were both incredibly well received, I think.
They won a lot of awards, and I had great reviews. And it was amazing. I mean, it was a real kind of, whoa. Yeah. Because I'd been... And you'll see if you steal the book, you'll see that it was... I mean, I really had been slogging away for years trying to get ahead,
So it must have been overjoyed. Do you remember when you read the first reviews, for example, of Marion and Jeff and Human Remains? What you thought? How you felt?
I smiled. Yeah, it was great. Yeah, it was great. I remember the morning after Human Remains started, I was in Brighton, and Julia and we were still maybe editing some of it, perhaps. We went to a cafe and got these reviews out, and they were fantastic. I mean, the Times review was out of this world, right? And we were feeling very full of ourselves. And somebody came into the cafe and said, excuse me. And I think I went, yes, waiting for the compliment. And he said, I've just put my car on a yellow line. Could you keep an eye on it for me? So I learned then never to take anything for granted.
Brilliant. I'll give you guys a chance to ask questions in a minute, so be thinking of anything you want to ask. In the meantime, I think you're going to read some of...
I'll read a little bit.
Because you can obviously download the book from iTunes, and you can get the audio version, which I've got, which is amazing. 8 hours it is of you reading the audio.
Is it 8 hours?
8 hours,
Oh, my God.
Amazing.
Right. Well, there's a bit that I really like. Is a bit when I was 16, I worked for a while in a nightclub in Port Talbot, in a disco it was called then, called the Troubadour, and this is me now reading that bit of the book. I haven't started yet. Here we go. The Stoneleigh, that's another club from earlier in the book, so imagine you're aware of that. The Stoneleigh was one of the very few... I'll try to do it not as Ronnie Corbett. The Stoneleigh was one of the very few nightclubs at which I spent any time as a teenager, because I didn't drink as a teenager. And that's me adding on, and that's not in the book. If I go like that, okay, that's added. Don't buy the book and then go, it doesn't say that. Refund. The other was the Troubadour in the Aberavon shopping centre, where I worked weekends while in the sixth form. Seeing the name of the place in print is a little misleading, lending it an undeserved air of sophistication when you bear in mind that the glasses were made of plastic. If readers are at all familiar with a nightclub called the Troubadour, it's more likely to be the one found on Santa Monica Boulevard in Los Angeles, a legendary venue famous for the role it played in launching the careers of, amongst others, Elton John, James Taylor and Carole King. To really appreciate my memories of the Port Talbot Troubadour, it's vitally important that you clear your mind of any thought of the Los Angeles venue. They were very different. I worked behind the bar of the Port Talbot branch, handling the glasses, the plastic glasses, on Friday and Saturday nights during the last summer before leaving home and heading off to college. In doing so, I joined a group of regular employees who would have been a scriptwriter's dream, so clearly were their characters defined. Had it been a sitcom that was being written, then a convincing argument could have been made for their individual and collective entrapment, the state in which we are told all successful sitcom characters find themselves. There was the single mum, Julie, who I'm guessing would have been in her early 20s, with lots of makeup but the perfect skin of a porcelain doll. Then the young lovers, Sandy and Andy. Honestly. Sandy worked behind the bar and Andy helped the DJ. Open brackets. Did he? I don't know how anyone writes an autobiography without a team of helpers. Close brackets. And then there was Barbara, the older, matriarchal member of the team. Was she 40? Was she younger? I don't know. I was 19. It was ages ago. I do remember her regarding me with amusement as a nice boy who'd lived a pretty comfortable life up till now and had perhaps not experienced much of the earthier side of life. I can't remember what it was exactly, but one evening she responded to something I said with an emphatic, "What you need is a good fuck." Perhaps I'd asked her what it was she thought I needed. The resident DJ at the club was a jovial fellow with the violently heterosexual name of Roger Knight. He worked on a raised dais from where he enjoyed a panoramic vista that encompassed the entire dance floor and most of the rest of the club. From his lofty eyrie, he had control of the sound system and lights, not just the flashing and spinning disco lights as they pulsated in a never-ending festival of colour, red, blue, green, ooh, purple, but the house lights too. When one of the not infrequent fights broke out, Roger would press a button, like Christopher Lee's Scaramanga reaching under the table to fire his gun, switching on the ceiling lights nearest to the affray, and calmly point to the newly illuminated offenders so that the bouncers would know where to go. He did all this without breaking a sweat, still managing to mix seamlessly from Casey and the Sunshine Band into something new from Level 42. If you've ever worked in a bar, or disco, as I suppose this was, then you'll know that the running of the place is a curious blend of show business, the hospitality industry, and a hint of the underworld. It has to be said that some of the clientele would have struggled to keep up with the etiquette requirements at the Henley Regatta and could be quite direct in their responses to what was going on around them. One chap, to whom I served a pint of something or other, screwed up his face in disgust and spat the mouthful of liquid straight back out at me, saying with admirable economy, "That tastes like piss," thus expressing in 4 words what even the most gifted food critic would struggle to contain within a page. The many scuffles and fights I witnessed while working at the Troubadour weren't limited to the boys, although it was usually the young men that started them. The girls would often get involved too, in the traditional "leave it, Wayne, he's not worth it" manner, before pulling at the mid-80s fashion-clad arms of their beloved, before getting a taste for the action and piling in themselves. Fans of the macabre will be pleased to hear that the bloodshed wasn't confined to the dance floor. One of the most disturbing sights I have ever witnessed was revealed to me all those years ago in the ladies' toilets after an especially unpleasant mishap. Earlier that evening, I'd noticed a bit of a scene developing around the entrance to the conveniences and the subsequent appearance of an ambulance crew. Once the club had closed and we were clearing away the plastic glasses, one of the bouncers came over to me, gesturing towards the toilets and smiling. "Come and have a look at this, Rob." The bouncers were always very friendly to me. Huge, hulking, brick outhouses of men, often with children's faces. They seemed to take to me. There was something of Androcles and the lion to our relationships, although I can't honestly claim to have ever removed thorns from their toes. We went into the ladies' toilets to be met by a sight that wouldn't have been out of place in Brian De Palma's Scarface. A toilet was lying in pieces within its cubicle. There were pools of blood on the floor and blood splattered over the walls. It was all I could do not to be sick. The bouncer told me what had happened, shaking his head and tutting as he recounted the story. Apparently, a girl had been standing on the then unbroken toilet, looking over the cubicle divider to chat with her friend, one booth along. The toilet had given way under her weight and split open. As she fell to the ground, the jagged porcelain of the shattered toilet had sliced into her leg, and hey presto, say hello to my little friend. It wasn't a bloodbath every night, though, and I had many good times amongst the regular staff, whose number I was swelling during the busy summer holiday period. As I look back now on those few months of work, which would lead up to my leaving home and going to college, the whole episode takes on the air of a Neil Simon play. Me, the young innocent, taking my first faltering steps into the adult world, bumping up against all sorts of characters who, in light of my age and the setting in which we found ourselves, related to me for the first time more as an adult than as a child. Substitute Brighton Beach, New York for Port Talbot and Eugene Jerome for me, and my story could remain roughly the same without any impairment of the audience's enjoyment. All the staff welcomed me and made me feel as though I was one of the team, although, looking back, I was more than a little wet behind the ears, and I'm sure, for this reason alone, a great source of amusement to them all. I was yet to be initiated into the ways of the fairer sex, with no sign of a girlfriend on the horizon, despite many efforts on my part to woo my classmates at Porthcawl Comprehensive, all of whom seemed to have taken a vow of abstinence when it came to anyone answering my description. But surely, you protest, working in a nightclub must have presented you with some opportunities to explore new possibilities. You'd think so, wouldn't you? If I might be permitted to employ the terminology of the football fan for a moment, perhaps I can relay to you an episode in which it can be said I missed an open goal. It was Hawaiian night at the Troubadour, an exciting prospect for staff and locals alike. I remember arriving for work in an optimistic pair of colourful shorts and a suitably Hawaiian shirt, to be met by a wolf whistle from Barbara, ironic, I've no doubt. Julie would have treated me to a sympathetic, "Aww," and Sandy probably joined the chorus with a giggle. There were two bars at the Troubadour, the big main bar, which would be staffed throughout the night by three of us, and around 25 feet away to the left, in the darkness on the edge of town, a smaller facility, which would be manned solo. For this reason, I always referred to it, rather wittily I thought, as the Millennium Falcon. It would not be the last time I would find myself explaining a joke. On the night in question, after a period on the big bar with my colleagues, I was sent over to man the Millennium Falcon. This gave me a great sense of pride, to be handed such responsibility so soon into my tenure at the club, and as my short white legs crossed the floor space, clad only in my colourful tropic-suggesting shorts, I was determined not to abuse the trust that had been placed on my young shoulders. Now, the thing to remember about the smaller bar was that you were on your own, and the till was your sole responsibility. If there were any mistakes or discrepancies at the end of the evening, they were down to you and you alone. It was expected that you would make good any shortfall, a serious proposition given the modest wages that the job provided. With this in mind, I was extra careful to give the correct change and to always keep an eye on the till, which was positioned behind and to the right of me, lest someone attempt to dip their fingers therein. With hindsight, this overly cautious approach cost me an evening of delights which would, I've no doubt, have altered the course of my future relationships with women. At the very least, I would have started the race at the same time as the other runners, rather than chasing desperately behind them, baton in hand. It's fair to say I handed over my baton much later than my friends. But back to the little bar. There I was, working away diligently in the Hawaiian style, when at some point I found myself talking to two girls as they leaned against the bar. I can remember absolutely nothing about their appearance. I remember a great deal about their actions. As the conversation progressed, what were we talking about? I have no idea. It occurred to me that the girls, and certainly one of them in particular, were becoming increasingly fruity, the one leaning in ever closer as her friend looked on approvingly. I remember them urging me to come out from behind the bar and join them so that we could familiarize our young selves. I was hesitant, my lack of success with girls at this point leading me to believe the only rational explanation for such interest on their part was their being involved in an elaborately planned sting, the design of which was to separate me from my beloved Till, at which point their stripy shirted accomplices would drop from the ceiling, SWAT style, and empty the till of all the carefully counted money. To encourage a positive response on my part, the more forward of the two, while her helper looked on, offering encouraging glances, began to suck my finger. She was sucking my finger. It may have been 2 fingers, it may even have been 3. It was all I could do to stand upright and not pass out. In between slurps, she would keep imploring me to come out from behind the bar. I wanted to. God knows I wanted to. I think it's fair to say I'd never wanted anything more in my entire life. She had managed to wangle out of me the fact that my mother's red Datsun Cherry was parked outside, and suggested it would be the perfect vehicle for the 3 of us to drive off in towards her warm and cosy flat on the nearby Sandfields estate. I pictured this beautiful abode as she sucked and licked my fingers ever more salaciously, while simultaneously glancing nervously over my shoulder to check on the till. By now, there were 2 things stopping me. One was the till, the other was the risk that my flimsy shorts, robbed of the shielding properties of the bar, might give too clear an indication of my conflicted state. I have to say that nowadays, in such circumstances, I would probably leap up onto the bar and demand a spotlight. But in those long-gone times of fantastically frequent and often unaccountable downstairs developments, I usually found myself reacting with great self-consciousness. And so it went on, the freshest stalemate known to man, until, bewildered and defeated, the 2 of them sloped off in a highly aroused state of defeat, and I was left standing proudly next to the till, still intact. On many occasions since that day, I've played out in my mind the events of that most anticlimactic of evenings, struggling to remain true to the details as they unfolded. Rather like a screenwriter adapting and altering a much-loved book for the cinema, the only thing I change is the ending. In all my nights at the Troubadour, this was the one and only time that sex, or at least the faint possibility of sex, reared its head. This and the ever-present can't-rule-it-out scenario lurking in my overdeveloped adolescent imagination that one evening, quite without warning, Barbara, in the manner of a short, Welsh, slightly aggressive Mrs. Robinson, would take me in hand and teach me the ways of the world. She never did. Thank you.
Brilliant. And you can listen to 8 hours of that if you download the audiobook. So we've got...
I have to say, I wasn't intending to read for that long. I do apologise if you thought for a minute I was going to do the whole book. I was expecting to do about half of that, but I was looking for a nice out.
I've got 2 things I really want to ask you. One is your obsession with Bruce Springsteen.
I love
comes
Bruce.
up a lot
Yeah.
in the book. What is it about Bruce?
I don't know. I tell you what part of it is. I do think people like people they can see a slight resemblance to. And I'm not saying I look like the god that is Bruce. But there is a slight, some people say there's a slight resemblance. I mean, not as much as there is with Anton Dubek, I'll give you that. But I do seriously think that people look at young actors, you ask people who they like, and they look to people that they can see a bit of themselves in. I think there's a kind of wish fulfillment, a bit of narcissism, it's a whole combination. But I've loved Bruce for a long, long time, and in the book I talk about my love of Springsteen and my eventual meeting with him, which was as anticlimactic. He came over for the Darkness on the Edge of Town documentary, and I know a man who knows him, so I got introduced, and I was a bit pissed, and I said, I thought, what am I going to say? I prayed that maybe he'd seen The Trip on an aeroplane or something. You go, all right, you're that guy. How you doing? All right. Good luck with the new series of Strictly Come Dancing. and I went up to him, and I said, somebody said, my friend Mark Hagan said, Bruce, this is Rob, very famous comedian in Britain. And he went, all right. And I said, Bruce, it's really, and I gripped his hand a bit too tightly, really, 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 really good to meet you. And he went, all right. He does that laugh, you see. And I thought, oh, and then to make it worse, I said, thanks for the moments. Just to make sure he left our encounter convinced that he'd met a lunatic.
And you mentioned the trip in that thing. I mean, for me, I love all of your stuff, obviously.
Of course you do. Of course you do, boy.
I watch it constantly.
Some of it, though, I've noticed has only got 3 stars. That's another story.
Hardly anything. But the trip, I think, people absolutely love the trip. I mean, everywhere. And when I said I was interviewing you today, people were asking me about, is there going to be another series? What's going to happen?
I don't know. There's talk of it. I'm in 2 minds.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the thought of doing it is lovely, but I feel what we did was great, and it had the element of surprise. So I don't know.
Okay.
I'm sure that if Michael wants to do it, Michael Winterbottom,
Yeah.
I'll end up doing
Yeah.
it because he's very persuasive.
Okay.
Yeah.
I hope so. And any more questions? Yes.
They're
all up now.
they're coming. That's better.
Start with you in the front.
Hello, Rob.
Hi there. Hello.
Hey.
Hey.
Hey, it's nice to be talking with you.
Yeah, great to have a fellow Welshman in the audience.
Yeah.
I have such an ear for accents.
Yeah.
I really can pick the slightest thing.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, as a young actor,
Yeah.
if you
Thank
were
you.
to try,
Bless you. I'm 46. This light is very kind.
I guess what I want to ask is, if you were trying to break into the industry now,
Oh God.
would
that's
you?
terrifying.
I would imagine you would.
Too tired.
I don't know. I mean, would
Yeah.
you start writing your own material?
Yes.
Would you get on YouTube? Would
Yes, I would do all that.
Would you start making your rounds around different improvs and
Yes,
things like that?
I would. You know, here's what I think the thing to do is, and it applies in lots of areas of life. It's really simple, but hard to do. But it's a simple theory. You've got to have something that somebody else thinks will make their life better. That's all it is. So if you've made a demo tape, you've got to have a demo tape that a producer or director thinks will make their life better, because they'll be able to make that program. You've got to see something. It's as simple as that. Or if you're auditioning for a play, you've got to make the director think, well, if he or she were in my play, it would be a better production. I really think it does come down to that at the end of the day. And that's hard to do, of course. Not easy to do. But for a long time, I used to think, why am I not getting breaks? And a lot of it was just in my head. And I used to think, why don't people know all the things I can do? You have to show them. Don't tell them. Show them. So I really believe that it's just trading. Someone has to think, I want that. And then the viewer at the end has to feel, I want to watch that show because I'm going to feel better, or I want to go to his play or his stand-up show. Why do all these people go to see Peter Kay? Because they think it's, Michael McIntyre, because they think it's going to give them a good feeling. They're going to feel good. And I think that basically filters down all the way. And once I kind of saw that, things got a bit easier.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And that's
Was it almost Yoda-like quality to that answer, wasn't it? I surprised myself there. Actually, a lot wiser than I realised. Oh, passing it along.
Yeah, there we go.
Hi, Rob.
Hiya.
How much would you say going to Welsh college influenced your career?
Great to have an American with us. The humour of reincorporation. Yeah. How much did it influence it? Yes.
Yeah, and do you reckon you'd be as successful now without it?
Oh, careful what I say here. Yeah, I think I probably would if I'm being brutally honest, because I loved my time there, and I'm a big fan of the place. But if I'm going to be honest with you, would I have fared less well for not going there? No, because of the path my career took, because I went into 7 or 8 years of radio and television presenting. I learned good ground rules there, but all I really did there was exercise my love of performing, really. I'm not sure that I learnt... no. Yeah. It's a great place. I don't know how much. I've just worked with Ken Branagh in, I call him Ken, in a play in Belfast. And he used to tell me about what they did at RADA. And it seemed, I'm talking about 30 years ago. And it seemed a lot more tougher there. I loved my time at the Welsh College, and I came out confident, so that's important. They didn't do that thing of breaking you down and building you up again, which I know some of the more extreme colleges do. Really, you know, being at drama school is a chance to practice. Because once Dustin Hoffman said a great thing. He said, you know, he said, when you're, I won't do that. He said, when you're a painter, you can paint. And when you're a poet, you can write poetry. But if you're an actor, it's kind of hard to act without looking like a lunatic. So that's what being in a drama school gives you the chance to do, is to practice. But I loved it there, and I'm doing an evening there soon. So let me make that very clear. I loved it there.
We've got time for a couple more questions.
Lady
there, yeah.
Thank you. Hi, Rob.
Hi.
I saw you on Saturday and Sunday in Belfast.
Did you?
Painkiller, and
Oh.
I loved it. It was
Thank you. This is the
hilarious.
play I was doing in Belfast. It was a farce with Ken. You enjoyed it, did you?
I did. It was absolutely fantastic.
Oh,
I
lovely.
laughed
Thank you
like
very
I've
much.
never laughed for
Thank
about
you.
a year. So did you enjoy stage acting? Is there going to be some more of
I
it?
loved it.
And
I
is
loved
the
it.
Painkiller going to transfer?
Possibly,
to
maybe. We don't know, but maybe. I loved it. I'd never done a play since college, really. You know, so it was quite a new discipline, being part of a company. You know, not just being on your own on a stage as a stand-up where you can do whatever you want. Here, you didn't want to drop the ball for the team, but in acting with Branagh, you know, I mean, there's so much to learn, you know, from him, and he's a lovely man, and I loved it. I've lost my voice a bit because I shout a lot in the play. The gentleman there.
Yes, final one, I'm afraid. We've got to go after this.
Good
Thank you.
Hello, good timing. Hey, Rob.
Hello.
Of all the things you've done,
Yes.
you know, television presenting, now acting, writing a book, etc., what do you enjoy the most, and where are you going to go in the future? What is your next big project? What do we look forward to?
I don't know, really. I mean, this year has been all about writing the book and then building up to doing the play. Next year, I've got some holiday time booked in, and then I don't know. I mean, I have these things like Would I Lie to You, the panel show. I don't know if that's going to come back. I'll wait and see. My talk show, I don't know if that's going to come back. We'll wait and see. The Painkiller, I don't know if we're going to do more of that. I'll wait and see. You know, the cornflakes are there though. That's that's a definite. Going to be shooting some more of those pretty soon. So I don't know. I mean, it's a boring answer. I genuinely do like everything. I took so long struggling to get to a place where people were offering me work. And I've always liked a lot of things, you know. I've always loved talk shows. You know, I go onto YouTube now and I look up Martin Short on David Letterman and people like Charles Grodin and Don Rickles, and I love all that. So I kind of do a bit of everything. So there's the danger of being a jack of all trades, but who cares, because I'm enjoying it, you know. And I made a conscious decision about 4 years ago, actually, that I would do everything that I liked, that I had the opportunity to do, rather than holding back and saying I'm just going to be an actor. Because I thought I enjoy it all. So,
Brilliant. Thank you. Well, that's all we've got time for, I'm afraid, but great last question. Thanks to you all for coming.
bit of edge to it. I
Yeah,
like that.
it was an exciting question. Thanks to you all for coming. The book is available to download in various forms on iTunes, and it is brilliant. I particularly recommend the audio version. That's just me. And all that needs to be said is thanks to Rob Brydon.
Well, let me thank you all as well for coming. Thank you very much indeed.